one of the things that we pride ourselves on is partnership and how we work together with people. And we're doing that in the research and development space. We've got some unbelievable partners. And, they say back to us, like, you guys are working differently, you're making decisions differently, you're taking risks in a different way. So we can move fast and we can really break through into cool areas.
There's sort of this weird thing where you're not confined to thinking inside the box because you don't know what the walls of the box are. That's, I think, what unlocks a lot of the speed and agility. We're not necessarily confined by past experiences of doing these things, which you might be if you're, very process oriented. That really excites me, and I think that helps expedite work, create our own processes as opposed to defaulting to whatever standard we were doing before.
Thousands of people have jump-started their TikTok content strategy using Kohli's TikTok Creative Brief template. That's because it has all the steps for successful creator collaborations and best practices to create fun and engaging TikToks. If you haven't grabbed your copy yet, don't worry. Kohli just dropped a brand new version of their popular template filled with even more tips and insights to level up your TikTok game. Head to kohli.com/TikTok to download your free copy and start creating TikToks for your brand that people actually want to watch. Hello and welcome to All Killer No Filler, the DTC Podcast. I am Eric Dick, and today we have a podcast that we just discovered is about 2 years in the making. It was about 2 years ago that I first started talking with Elliot Roazen, Director of Growth at the Unilever Uncovery. And I'm super excited to have both him as well as Selina Sykes, the VP of New Business Creation at Unilever, a $52.4 billion company, to discuss innovation and ideation and how a company like Unilever likes to launch products and how that dovetails with Pilot House. So, Selina, can we start with you? This is a broad question. How does Unilever think about new business creation in 2022?
I think for us, it's about how we can really be future fit and looking to where people are going. So we know that what people out there need, what they want, what they desire is changing all the time. And I think there's never been a time in history where kind of culture and technology are converging to make things change really fast and make people, make everything that you want and desire more accessible to you. So we're a big company that's always, for 100 years been trying to meet the needs of consumers and the wants of consumers. So if we can stay ahead of that and understand that and start testing and learning as quick as possible, we know that we're going to be a successful business into the future. So new business creation for us is about understanding what the future is evolving and making sure we're there doing it, not just observing it happen outside our business.
Amazing. You have so many brands that have been around for just under 100 years. I saw it was 1929 that Unilever was created, so you're coming up on your 100-year anniversary, if that's correct. So, Elliot, what would you chime in on this idea of new business creation or innovation, and specifically, what is the Uncovery?
Wow, two big questions. So I think I'll start with the Uncovery, and then we'll talk about my view on new business creation. So I think the Uncovery is like its own house of brands. So we are trying to launch a bunch of digitally native, omni-channel brands that deal with all of the evolving consumer demands that Selina described. I think how we think about new business creation, how to identify opportunities, that's like a moving target that we're always exploring. So we've tested so many theses of what's the best starting point for coming up with a great product idea. So things that we've looked at are how do we start with communities, maybe co-creating directly with consumers, and even more data-centric methodologies by combing through search demand or other data we can find on the web, and seeing what opportunities and white spaces are available.
Now, I know, Elliot, you've written for D2C before on this concept of this ideation process. And is that so? Before, do you go into this ideation process with a blank piece of paper, or as you say, are you really is it a process where you have a blank piece of paper while you look at all these search trends and cultural trends and things like that? Describe what the ideation process looks like.
I think oftentimes it is. If it's not a white piece of paper, it's a whiteboard. And we're starting to kind of build a direction as we go. I think this leaves enough open to create the magic of ideation. So there's sort of like this fool's errand where we're searching for like what's the single best data source that can just provide us the answer for everything that we should build. And I find that that's more of like a scientific way of going towards ideation. I see ideation a lot more like alchemy. So you're combining a good deal of these, scientific methodologies. So like combing through demand on search and everything is very numbers heavy and quantitative. But you also leave the door open for bouncing off of those and coming up with ideas that might be more qualitative or like a more like divine inspiration that comes to your team.
Yeah, and I can build on that because I think that's what the Uncovery is about. So we're really trying to bring the best of Unilever and, our legacy and our expertise. The team that we've got in the Uncovery have so much, like they've worked in this industry for such a long time and really have a hell of a lot of experience there. And trying to combine that with, as Elliot says, some of the like new ways of looking at things, data-centric, digital-focused, kind of ways to break the model and hack the model and find the disruption in what's been done before. So we're combining this magic, this expertise with the future and the way a lot of startups operate to try and find these magic areas. So, that's where we think something unique will happen and where we're finding our brands.
I'm curious, like you've got 100 years, 90 some odd years of data in in this CPG space. How much of the legacy data, or let's say legacy data to start, data about consumer habits and things like that, how much does that play into ideation or confirmation of the ideas that you're actually going to put budget behind?
I don't know if anyone wants to say that one. I know that I call it less data. I call it insight. It's insight. It's a business that really understands people in these spaces. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's data, it's consumer insight that we have, category understanding. There is such, and I've spoken to many people in different startups with many different backgrounds, but the kind of category understanding you have after being in categories for 100 years is completely different when you're just like entering into a category as a consumer who's got a really good idea to launch something in there. And, you're combining this through all the people in our team and all the people that we can tap into in Unilever. It's that insight that's really special that I think that brings to the table. And the data is more of the stuff that's coming fresh. That's what's happening, like you say, search demand, social, and all these things. And again, Unilever's got really good technologies and algorithms to harness that, and is able to build those really sophisticated tools that we can tap into as well, which is great.
And I would
assume. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I was going to say, to develop Selina's point about how much talent there is in the team and how many years of experience you bring to the table. I think when you think about starting like upstart or challenger brands, you usually have like a really talented product person or an operator. I'm talking externally right now. You rarely have people who have such deep knowledge about the science or the consumer research and a lot of things that we bring to the table or we have access to when we knock on Unilever proper's door. So it definitely is, it's a competitive advantage, but it also leads us to different doors than you would be if you were just starting this out of your garage or something.
I can imagine. Opens a few of them too.
Yeah, I was going to jump in and say like one of the very cool things is, obviously the access that you guys have to R&D resources and production capability and all those kinds of things. And I'm wondering how you're utilizing those insights that we were just talking about of 100 years of being in category to like refine those processes to become quicker and quicker. Can you guys touch on that a little bit maybe?
Yeah, I think product's something we really pride ourselves on, and I know Elliot's like a real champion of this, so I'm sure he'll add to it, but you've got to find what we use the word need, but I think we work in beauty and wellness, and I think it's more about desire. So you find what they desire, you find where the gaps are in the market, and then you absolutely have to deliver on it with the product. Like that's something that we really, really pride ourselves on, and that maybe comes from our Unilever background. That's what we always think in Unilever, like the product comes first. So we have got people in our team that are insanely good at research and development and have launch some of the best products that are on the market, really understanding, tapping into enormous teams and enormous resources in labs that are fantastic, but also where this kind of hybrid model comes into, we're also tapping into these external resources. So we've got, one of the things that we pride ourselves on at the Uncovery as well as product is partnership and how we work together with people. And we're doing that in the research and development space. We've got some unbelievable partners. And because we're working in such an agile way, we're just moving so fast with them. And, they say back to us, like, you guys are working differently. You're making decisions differently. You're taking risks in a different way. So we can move fast and we can really break through into cool areas. And I think it is, again, it's all about this combination of that deep expertise and scientific knowledge with these external partners and collaboration to get into product.
And the buffer that you're able to create with the Uncovery, right? With this, this sort of safe space a little bit where you're really prioritizing experimentation and ideation and the ability to, work with these partners and be super nimble in a way that Unilever proper just isn't probably set up to do. Is that right, Elliot?
I think Unilever proper is set up to do similar things for the core brands. So I think what appealed to me in the beginning when they were setting up the group, and I think what appeals to a lot of the people on the team, is there's a certain punk aspect where it's once you get to a certain level of your ability in R&D or supply chain or in the marketing side, you wonder what it would be like to do everything soup to nuts. And we're a pretty unique opportunity in the world where we're allowing that. So I think everyone has job descriptions and specialties on our team, but they've sort of dissolved. And that's really different than I think that if you're working at not just Unilever, but any large organization, it's very much all hands on deck. And I try to avoid startup mentality as something really scrappy or these things that are kind of ephemeral or talking points of the moment. But it really it is like that. I don't think on any given day I'm confined necessarily by what my job description says, but it's there's so many jobs that need to be done when standing up a brand. And one day you're a designer, the next day you're trying to figure out packaging. That's really special.
That's some of the cool stuff that we're discovering is how different skill sets can be applied in ways that you haven't imagined before, because we've dissolved these boundaries. So Elliot's a great example of someone who has definitely got a deep expertise in our team around growth and marketing, but is getting involved in all sorts of things. And when you put these people together, again, sparks fly and you get some really cool ideas. So I think as well as trying to create these brands and create these new business models, we're also trying to understand what are some of the new ways of working that we could apply to the bigger models and the core brands. So we're experimenting with how we do it as well as what we're creating.
And I would assume that the cross-learning that comes from that has got to be an accelerator, right?
Yeah. You'd be surprised how good supply chain people are at marketing and how marketing people can come up with out-of-the-box ideas for your first run of production. There's sort of this weird thing where you're not confined to thinking inside the box because you don't know what the walls of the box are. And that's I think what unlocks a lot of the speed and agility, is because we're not necessarily confined by past experiences of doing these things, which you might be if you're very process oriented. So yeah, that really excites me, and I think that helps expedite work, create our own processes as opposed to defaulting to whatever standard we were doing before.
I want to talk about your processes, but first, I'm just curious about can you give me an idea? It doesn't have to be exact, but of the number of ideas you come up with, the number of concepts you actually test, and then the number of ones that you go to the next phase. First of all, what are those phases? I guess it starts with ideation, and can you kind of just walk me through what that filter process looks like?
So it's constantly evolving, but I would say it would start with ideation, which is coming up with ideas. Then you have to sort of build what we've been calling a minimum viable brand. I've seen this used a lot in the tech space, but we've been applying it a lot in the consumer packaged goods arena, which is basically what is the minimal amount of branding with the least amount of waste that we can create to get consumer feedback. Then there's a validation phase, which is putting that in front of consumers in various formats and tests to see what the feedback is. And then you're kind of approaching after that, how do you launch this in its MVP format? And start to see its commercial viability. In terms of numbers, it's a lot. I was trying to do counting to come into this because I knew we would we would count it. But I think in like the year that we've been doing this, like it's in excess of like 200 and something full concepts. Half-baked things in the background, I mean, we're talking about hundreds more. And the funnel is like, that's where all the value is, because we have to go down from, 225 concepts or whatever to the ideas that we launch. And that's kind of our constraint. If we would love to launch every single one full blown and see how they do, but time, hands and money basically constrain us.
And about how many in that year of those 200 would you say you've launched?
Selina, what's the number at right now?
So coming out of this year, we'll launch 10 brands, which it's really a lot. We're a really small team. We work in a really lean way. So for anyone who's been involved in launching a brand, we're doing it differently, and that's the whole point. The whole point is we're doing this in a really cost-efficient way. Exactly as Elliot stuff. Get stuff in people's hands, understand what it is, and then we're at the moment, because we've just launched some brands, we're really now learning about how can you spot a winner, because we all know that however many percentage of startups fail. Like that's just, of course, the way it is, and you can all start with a great idea. Every single one of the ideas we get to launch are definitely scalable ideas on paper. They are brands that could become massive, massive brands that Unilever could take on in the future. Everything we launch has got that potential. But as we know, that's not all you need. You need to get in there. You need to get the feedback. You need to refine it. You need to keep refining it and iterating it. And launching 10 is a really good number to get a sense of. And we're just in the early stages, but we're seeing how fast and how quick we can go and how much better we can make our model. So we can, find the brands that are going to become future brands for Unilever.
Just to follow up on Eric's question here, what can you guys give us an? I know the number, but I'm asking for the viewers here. What's the fastest post-it to first sale you guys have had so far?
I think it's 39 days. So like 39 days from nothing but a scribble in front of us to holding product in hand. Actually, more than that. 39 days until it was on the digital shelf. So fast. And there was still some waste in there. Like we are our own worst critics. So we're trying to improve these processes and we're kind of discovering a lot as we go. So I think one unique thing with our team is like, just because you've had experience working in beauty and personal care doesn't mean you necessarily have experience working with the intricacies of Amazon, for example. But instead of like overthinking what our strategy for Amazon will be in the first place, we just kind of go headlong into it and discover as we go. We get a ton of learnings. And then the next time when we come around to do it, we usually cut off, 10 to 20% of the wasted time that we had previously.
And for reference, what would it take Unilever proper to launch a new product?
It's hard to say because, Unilever's actually introduced a really strong agility mindset and are embracing a lot of these practices across. So there are some really fast launches, not 39 days, but, the other thing is some of the technologies that we're developing at Unilever can take years because they're really like game-changing technologies. So you can have technologies that take a couple of years. You can also have launches that you can do in a year. I've worked on some of those in my experience. I think the fastest I've worked on in Unilever was probably about 14 months.
Wrong size, wrong color, didn't look right in the living room? There are hundreds of reasons your customers return products, but returns don't have to be goodbyes. They can be an opportunity to complete the shopping experience. Built exclusively for Shopify, Loop lets you create a delightful return experience to attract and retain more customers. By making it easy for your customers to find products they love, they'll come back again and again. See why thousands of Shopify brands like Allbirds, Chubbies, and Brooklinen trust Loop as their return partner at loopreturns.com/DTC. I want to bring Rob and Pilot House Amazon into this first, but can you, Selina, just tell me why, I know Amazon is a critical part of this, fast launch sort of structure that you've built out. Can you talk about why you've chosen Amazon to be such a critical part of this launch strategy?
Yeah, so first of all, we've chosen the US as a key market, and that's because it's at the forefront of beauty and wellness, and that's the categories that we're launching in. And it's a growing, strong market. And if you look in the US, a really key retail player in this space is Amazon. So the facts are there that it's one of the fastest growing channels, one of the biggest channels. You can access many people. So it's definitely something that gives you the opportunity to scale. It's not a niche channel, it's a big channel, and it's going to get bigger. So if you crack the code for what to do there, it's going to definitely benefit you for future launches, because that's only going to be more important. So that's like kind of the business rationale. And then from our Uncovery model, it's an amazing place to test stuff. You can get things up there. You can try different things. You can change your PDP page. It's a really good environment to do that kind of experimentation. And we really think it's a great channel to work on. There are other channels we look at as well, but Amazon's a key part.
I saw a study this week that said that 40% of digital sales in the US are going through Amazon right now.
It's just there, and you just reduce variables, right? You still, as Rob will attest to in a minute here, there's lots of know-how that goes into the product page and the ads that you'll essentially run to generate the interest, the top of funnel awareness. But it just reduces the number of variables you have in order to get solid distribution, because it's where the shoppers are. Rob, how has this relationship been for you so far?
It's super, super fun, because you get to see how nimble and fast the Uncovery team moves, from brand launches to just getting new products out. It's really crazy, and it's really fun to be a part of. But then you have that excitement too of the power of Unilever proper being behind those brands, behind those successes. So you start looking at, if there's a win, you can immediately see that this is going to move very, very quickly, because that new product from post-it to launch, you can apply that to expanding a product line as well. So you can grow a brand very quickly, but you can also launch new brands very fast. So that combined makes it's a really exciting place to be. And on the testing ground, Amazon's great for that, just because it's where the customer is, but it's also that bottom of funnel search traffic. So people are problem aware, they're pain aware, and if you can show them and build some wins there, it kind of reiterates that the bottom of funnel will buy. So now you can move up and educate middle of funnel, educate top of funnel, and build the brand through other DTC channels. But you already know the purchase intent is there, which is a cool way to launch a brand.
I love it. From when you launch these, when we get the green light essentially on a new product from the Unilever's Foundry, what's Pilot House's first steps to making sure that in the pre-interview, Elliot mentioned that the worst thing you don't want is to have $10 billion brands in your graveyard because you didn't give them enough juice, or you didn't launch them properly. So what does an Amazon launch look like for one of these greenlit products?
Ultimately it starts with keyword research. That's your foundation to building anything on Amazon, is understanding, it starts with talking to the brand first, and the R&D team and the brand team at Uncovery, to understand what's in these products, why did they build it, what are the pain points we're solving, what's the intention of someone buying it, to really understand that purchase decision. And then you're going into keyword research. So you're saying, okay, well, people looking to solve these problems, what are they looking for? What are they trying to solve? You build that into your listing and your ad strategy. And of course, dialing your listing images, build SEO optimized titles and bullets that also sell the product. Foundation is keyword research, and then a smart ad strategy from there. And making the most of the first couple weeks to a month, because if you can really hit it out of the gate, that's going to just double down your success. You do have that little bit of a honeymoon period on Amazon that you're going to be easier to build ranking relevance in the first sort of 30 days. So if you can take advantage of that by leveraging, putting your best foot forward from day one, that'll help build success.
And then on the Unilever side, add on there, Elliot.
I was going to add on the testing side that Amazon is kind of perfect if you need to have a really quick kill, scale, or pivot decision. Because if you follow the best practices for launching a product on Amazon, so like Rob said, all the keyword research, optimizing the listing, getting a lot of banging creative, having your A+ and your brand store set up and all of that, if you give it 60 or 90 days, you can get a pretty good read if what you're selling has legs. And that's pretty difficult if you're testing on your own DTC website, right? Because there's a million reasons why you may not be converting on your DTC. So maybe your email marketing is not set up, maybe your PDPs are off, maybe your load time, and all these decisions get collapsed. People usually talk about Amazon in terms of being like, it's not super flexible to these things, but there are benefits to the constraints of working within the Amazon environment. It's also incredibly expensive to generate demand for something. And like Rob said, with Amazon, like there's a ton of demand. It's about your ability to capture it. And if you're unable to capture demand after iterating a few times, like it doesn't matter how good your product is or how beautiful your brand is set up, like there's just not as much demand there as you thought there were. And unless you're going to go and spend a bunch of money to generate demand, that's a huge indicator to us.
In terms of other indicators, what are those key indicators when it comes to kill, scale, or pivot? Like, what does it take to get a brand from launch to scale? What are you looking for there? Like, obviously sales, but like what else are those key green flags?
Yeah, I think obviously it's sales. So when we're launching stuff, I said everything's got scalable potential. So we have a sense of what good looks like in terms of size. The question is, what's the time to scale? And that's the tension, like how long does it take to really build these brands? And you can do so many case studies of all these success stories and how long it took them. But ultimately, when you're living it and doing it, it's that kind of day-to-day decision. So we do look at a range of KPIs. I think there are a load of, like, I wouldn't call them soft measures, but other measures in terms of the feedback you get on your product. And again, digital platforms are the perfect place to get ratings and reviews, to get feedback. Social channels really place good to see if this community is engaging or not. So any kind of like social or community engagement metrics, super important to us. I think we can get a sense in terms of like people coming back to buy, because we can obviously track that through the data. And it's really important. We're looking at things like the databases that we build. There are so many metrics in the kind of ecosystem of our launch that we can build and understand to get a sense of, as Elliot says, is this something that's got legs? And that's the whole point of our model. We're de-risking the opportunity to find out on a number of things, and then we can invest to scale. And like we said, we've got the ability to do that as a business.
Very cool. When it comes, I'm just curious, I don't know if we're talking specific products on this podcast, but do we have some products that have launched and are sort of either approaching scale or already into that scale phase?
No, I mean, you can, it depends what you call scale phase. There are definitely like a hierarchy of our brands. And actually we use kind of agile methodologies to help us prioritize. And I was just talking to my team about like what different bucket each of our brands, of our 10 brands are in. So there are definitely brands that are giving us more positive indicators. But yeah, we learn every day in this. And that's why I love working in the Uncovery. Like I've learned so much. I've been doing this for like 16 years in my career, but this last year of leading this business has been incredible, because you just like, it's more than a curve. It's really if your eyes are open and your ears are open, you can learn every single day a lot about how to win in this market. So we've definitely got a hierarchy, but I wouldn't say that I could say like I got something that I'd be handing back to Unilever, to scale. Yeah, I want to give it some time. I want to get some more sales on the table.
And that's interesting, because that's what a win looks like. Ultimately, is it leaves the foundry, I imagine, and becomes part of Unilever proper, and their systems for true distribution and scale take over that. That'll be a wistful moment when you have to wave goodbye to your fledgling creations.
Yeah, and that's the future success. But I see lots of amazing milestones along the way in terms of learning and sharing those learnings back and helping build this future. Like that's really what we're all about. It's like, how can we help contribute to the future that we're trying to build as a business? And the Uncovery has a lot to offer in that space. One of those things we hope will be a brand that will be a part of the future of Unilever, along with all the amazing brands that we have that have got serious legacy. We want to be part of that with our brands. But also, all the brands we're launching are meeting consumer needs and doing something different in the space. We're looking for these white spaces. So we see lots of success in just connecting with people in those needs and offering them products and brands and solutions that help them. And, when we're getting any kind of success on any scale, doing that, it's a really proud moment for us, and we're really enjoying that.
Very cool. Have you, here's my, once you have got a product that's, say, in that one of those buckets in the scaling phase on Amazon, at what point do you start thinking about other platforms, Elliot? And right now, for say the one that's in your top bucket or your top couple buckets, where do you see the next phase of scale in terms of other ad platforms coming from?
So this is kind of like the double-edged sword about Amazon being a pool of demand you can capture. Is there is sort of like a moving ceiling on that, right? So if you're trying to really like drum up your numbers and open up in different channels and increase your sales, you might hit an inflection point where you've done about as much success as you can currently on Amazon, and you need to open up the opportunity to do DTC or other channels. Does that answer that?
I think so. But are there any that are? Is there any that are on your mind in terms of specific platforms you think of as a fertile grounds to be the next phase of your sort of launch process?
So I kind of see like setting up the DTC website to have like this three. If they're not separate channels, they're kind of three prongs of the same stool. Would be like the paid media, your consumer experience, and email marketing or SMS marketing. So like building your list in CRM and consumer database, making sure that the experience is seamless across all of your digital touch points and artifacts, and then running really high quality traffic and media towards those places. I think without any one foot of that stool, you kind of run into like a leaky bucket scenario. So having them all kind of, I don't view them as separate channels. I kind of view them as part of the same tactic.
And it's just interesting because Amazon does collapse so much of them, so it does make perfect sense to be the place where you launch. Selina, we're just for the last question here. I'm just curious. We didn't talk about this before, but how does Unilever think about the CPG space in a potential global economic downturn?
That's a really hard question. I think like any business would think about it. You've got to respond to changes in the market. Like ultimately, whether people are getting more affluent or people are, in really tough times. It's about how are you there for them? How do you offer what they need? And it's not always clear cut, what you can offer people, when they're going through tough times financially. Sometimes, people stop going to the spa and want to create that experience at home. And how can you offer them doing that? So at the end of the day, at any time, for us, it's about really understand your consumer, walk in their shoes, be with them, de-average them. They're not like like one person, understand all the different experiences that people have, and then be the first and the best to be there for them with something that they need. And this change in like the economic situation and the global situation is a really good opportunity for us to start listening, or to get to really listen and really look and really see what people need and deliver it for them. And that's what we're trying to do always.
I've also just read some initial things about ad spending that are, companies slowing down ad spending or not. And CPG seems to be, and consumables in general seem to be slightly insulated, like electronics and maybe home goods and maybe some higher ticket things. There may be a bit more, but I feel like consumables and CPG are a little bit sheltered potentially just because they're something that people don't usually go without. Yeah,
there are obviously definitely products that you were always going to need in your life. I can't speak for anything in terms of our like global ad spend. I'm not at all connected to that area at all. But definitely, I think it's hard to say what people can go without and can go without, or can or can't go without. It's an individual thing, and for me, it comes back to just knowing and learning about your consumer and understanding where they're at that time.
Totally. On the Pilot House side, what's the focus kind of going forward into what are we headed into Q3 here, Rob? Just kind of keep scaling within the parameters.
I mean, we're getting real excited for like Prime Days next month, and then Amazon announced they're doing a second Prime related event, I believe, in the fall. My assumption is it'll be in October, and then like you move right into October into like Black Friday, Cyber Monday in November, and then to Christmas shopping. So we're heading into a very exciting time of year. So the focus with the brands now is driving as much volume and rank and relevance boost as we can, because all that traffic is going to naturally come to Amazon throughout the next few months. So the higher you are up in your rankings, the more you can capitalize on that traffic. And as long as your campaigns are set up correctly with good bids and not budget capped, to scale up when that traffic comes, we'll be in a really good position to capture a lot of that demand, which is super exciting.
Very cool. And I have to ask my 50K question to Elliot, Mr. Innovation here. If we were to give you a 50K slush fund for each of your 10 brands, where would you use that to leverage the most growth?
I do content marketing. Like, I feel like so many DTC brands have like really boring blogs and their content operations, so that they do the really good like featured about brand stuff, but they don't expand that into like a broader content ecosystem. And I feel like looking into the next like 6 to 8 months, like having organic playing, 10 to 20% of your traffic, which I don't think a lot of e-commerce brands have, but 10, 20, 30% of your traffic coming from organic would be a real game changer. So I've been thinking a lot, building like forecasts for brands lately. Of course, it's like difficult to make any one particular channel profitable, and it's more about like your total store performance. But it wouldn't hurt to have another like 100,000 sessions coming from organic.
I smell a skincare newsletter brewing.
Oh,
can't go wrong with the newsletter. Do you agree with that, Selina? Not to oppose you guys, and I actually want to hear Rob, even in the Amazon environment, where you'd use it and which bars Dan would blow it at. But Selina, sorry, that was a shot. Selina, do you agree with content marketing? Where would you put the 50K?
Yeah, no, I'm fully with Elliot. I really think that's absolutely key. Is doing something engaging 100%. There's so much you can do in that space as well. Like way more creative stuff that's available. So yeah.
I love it. And Rob, in the Amazon environment, where would you, if we gave you 50K slush fund from D2C, what would you do with it?
It depends on where the brand's at, honestly. So I'll use just a random example. Like if that brand is reaching what Elliot's talking about in terms of balancing that rank and relevance, like you're maybe achieved rank for one of your mid-volume keywords, but you can't quite compete for your highest volume. So the brand's been proven, and now you need to go capture demand and build that brand. I would go spend it on Facebook, honestly, and drive it to DTC, because that's just going to help you drive additional volume for the brand. That'll spill over to Amazon, and then you'll see a lot of success out of that. If it's super early days on Amazon, you're just launching, then like on Amazon ads, which is just a cop-out answer. But
I love it. And last words for Mr. Norcia, where would you put your 50K slush fund?
Not at a bar, but thank you for that. I think it's kind of a hybrid answer, to be honest. I think the content side of things is super important, but not necessarily written content. I think creator-generated content, I think reviews, I think use videos, unboxing, etc. is super important for new brands to kind of get that initial momentum going. Obviously, we've been spending a tremendous amount of our effort in the past probably 6 or so months on TikTok. It is a highly scalable platform, and if you get that content correct, can create absolutely insane virality in a very short period of time. So that part of it, right? And then making sure that you're able to capture those folks outside of TikTok, which is a highly top of funnel platform. So how do you get folks interested at the top of the funnel, and then how do you like maintain that connection and get them seamlessly to make a purchase? So that's sort
easy,
of
right? I love it. Nice.
Yeah.
I want to thank everyone for coming on the All Killer No Filler show today. This was a lot of fun. Have a great, I don't know if it's a long weekend in both Canada and the United States, just on the Friday and the Monday, I understand. So I hope everyone has a long weekend. I don't know if Selina, you do in the UK as well. Is it a long weekend for you?
I don't think we have a long weekend. No, we have no long weekend this weekend.
Sorry for bringing it up then. See you later.
You guys enjoy.
See you later,
Enjoy your
everyone.
long weekend.
We will. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at directtoconsumer.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.